How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our Lorbeck Luxury Cars Friday Drive. Now, I've picked a few cars, 2 supercars and 2 SUVs to highlight. It's been a while since I've been at Lorbeck, Christmas, New Year, and we're back again for another video, and I'm really excited to show you a couple of really cool cars, starting with this AMG GTR that has just been sold. So one of my absolute favorite cars. It's a car that I've spent a lot of time in, but also with the GTR, it's a car that I've raced as well in the race version, and there's a reason why these cars are so successful on the racetrack all over the world. It's because of their brilliant balance, the power, the way that the car handles, and that all stems from a legality point of view in the racing series to actually what the road car is today. Now, these ones have that rear steer capability, which is a little bit different if you don't have in the race car, but one thing I really wanted to show you is this. I'm going to open up the front of the bonnet here where the engine is, and as I've got in, I've just noticed the bucket seats and a few other. We'll go into a bit of detail in a moment. We're going to open up this big long bonnet, and you can see that massive V8 engine that's been synonymous with Mercedes-Benz for so long. I talk about it a lot, but I love the fact that it has this sort of signification of the engine builder, hand built for the majority of it. This long front allows that delivery of power to come through the engine, through the chassis, and means that it's actually a lot more well balanced than some people might think, whereas a more rear-engined car like a Lamborghini or Ferrari can sometimes be a little bit taily, and that's why I think these cars are so good, particularly not just for the pros but for amateur drivers as well. And a car to take on the track, which our next car in this series is going to be as well, is fantastic. Something else to take note of on the vehicle, got carbon ceramic brakes. There's massive front brakes particularly, and the rear one's a little bit smaller naturally, but when you're traveling at the sort of speeds that this car's capable of traveling at, you need to be able to stop correctly, particularly if you are going to take it on the track. You've got carbon detailing on the wing mirrors, on the roof, and then on this rear wing as well. The rear wing doesn't need to do a huge amount. It does make a difference between the GTR or the GTC or the regular GT, but one thing I will say is that in the race car even, it kind of tinkers a little bit to and fro. We're going to talk a little bit about the interior now, and I'm going to just squat down for a second because I want to show you the seat before I sit into it. You can see the contrast of the red belt, but also those bucket seats that are really going to hold you in. This car's clearly been spec'd when it was built for somebody that might have wanted to go for a bit more of a spirited drive on some nice roads rather than keep it in the garage, but it hasn't done a lot of Ks either. It's about 17,000, which is fantastic, and those bucket seats, even when you're driving day to day, keep you locked in there really nicely. There's some carbon detailing on the running board here with the AMG, which I think is really cool, and the Alcantara finish. I'm going to sit in now and we'll just get a feel for the interior as we're sat in here. Now, this is pre-facelift, which I actually am a big fan of. It's a little bit more tactile than the next generation of car. The infotainment system is still fantastic. It still works really well. You've got that really nice roof lining on the top here, and the cage, half-roll cage at the back there is really nice. Keeps that rigidity of the car and the chassis all the time, which is fantastic. I'm going to start the car up now because, I mean, we want to be able to hear it. There's nothing quite like that Mercedes-Benz sound. You hear one on the road and it's so synonymous with everything. And we don't even have the exhaust button on. And now you can hear it a little bit more. Sounds so good. And we've got a few different buttons here. I'm going to turn the car off just so you can hear me a little bit better. But we've got our suspension button, we've got the traction system, and I'm going to talk about the traction system in a little bit more detail in a moment. But we've also got manual mode, we've got our exhaust button, but the carbon detailing all through here is really nice. A Felterback symbol there, which is really nice, and that I'm a big fan of an Alcantara steering wheel. It feels, I just get a bit more feel than I do from a leather steering wheel typically, but it's all really nice and set. I almost feel like I'm back in the race car at the moment. And one thing I think is really cool to finish on with the interior, the traction control button here. So when you go into race mode and you're starting to do some stuff on the track, you can tinker with this and you can turn it one way or the other to give your traction settings not just on or off or in sport or whatever it might be depending on the manufacturer. This button is basically the same as my race car that I race. So as I'm tinkering with it, I have different settings of different levels of slip, and that little toggle here, as I twist it, I can dictate how much slip or how much intervention with the traction control I want. So as an example, when it's bone dry and I've got good tires on, I'm going to run less traction control because I don't need the help, the grip of the tires there. But in the wet, we're going to dial that right up so that there's a lot of intervention, so it helps me stay on track and it doesn't intervene too much, and you can start to tinker with it. And I think the fact that it's even in a road car is really awesome. So now we're finished with the AMG GTR. Next up, slightly higher in price point, and for very good reason, I think, in some ways. And we're going to talk about a little bit the comparisons between the two cars, but 911 GT3, 991.2 more specifically, so not the .1 but the .2, which I think is really important because it's slightly facelifted, it's a few extra details, and they made a couple of changes to the car that I think really brought out a little bit of performance, got a little bit more power, it's got a little bit more stability, and it made the car a little bit more fun to drive too. Talk about the exterior a little bit now, and that very classic 911 look, and you think about the 992 that we featured at the back end of last year, the turbo. The look is different, but it's also the same, and that's what I love about 911s, that's what I love about Porsches. And I think that classic shape, as we work our way down, we've got the same thing, big carbon ceramic brakes. This has got an upgraded Club Sport CS package, which that is included, and slightly more lightweight black rims, which I think is really cool. And I actually quite like the red detailing on the rim there. I actually think it's quite fun. I'm a big fan. As we work our way towards the back, we'll get into the interior in a second. Same thing, big rear brakes, big rear tires. The one thing Porsches have always been really good at, and it's the same in their 911 Cup cars that I've been lucky enough to drive as well. That rear stability is really good, and it's because of that the way that the car sits on the rear, that rear engine feel, slightly different on the way into the corner. You have to try and work harder to get the car in, but on the exit, that's where this car really comes alive. And that balance of performance you feel in the Cup car is basically a stripped out version of one of these things. Obviously the RS version, a little bit more power, a little bit more aerodynamics, but even the GT3 is so capable that a lot of people, you only notice that difference really at the very higher end of the speed that you're traveling at. And the faster you try and push the car, you finally notice those different things. But one thing I will say, that rear stability, because of those big rear tires, good rear brakes, is really important. We've got a slightly bigger rear wing in comparison to the GTR as well, which you will notice if you were to start driving a little bit faster, but even on the road, super comfortable. And one thing I was a massive fan of that I noticed on the spec of this car, I'm a huge fan of the black badges at the back, but also matched up with those black exhaust tips as well. Now we're on to the interior of the car, and there's some similarities, but the space feels a little bit smaller, a little bit more confined, which I'm actually a bit of a fan of. I've got the Sport Chrono Pack up here with the matching red stitching, and this is the first time I've seen the GT3 spec seat like this, and I think it's a really cool option with the Alcantara feel. Still got the bucket seats to keep you nice and locked in, and we do have the Shroff Racing harness as well, which I think, especially if you're going to do some more spirited driving, even on the road, going to do a Targa, you can do anything like that, these are going to be really important to keep you nice and safe as well, just in case. But also, once you're strapped in and locked in, it makes you feel an awful lot more part of the car as you're driving, and even just in general, I think they're a great pick. Bigger cage in comparison to the AMG GTR, and we're starting to see the differences that we have between the two vehicles. One's obviously a little bit older as well with the GTR, this is a slightly newer MY 2018 car, but you've got even small details, the Alcantara finish, Alcantara roof lining as well. The steering wheel is just so nice and fresh. This thing's only done 5,000 kilometers, so it's basically brand new, hardly just run in, and it's a car that I just think is so much fun. And you've got a bit of a manual lever to move the seat forwards as well, which I quite like. It's a little bit more analog in a lot of ways, and Porsches typically are with the buttons, that sort of thing. And same thing, we're going to start the car up. And the noise, again, open the exhaust up. That flat six is so distinctive in so many ways. I'm going to turn it off again so you can hear me properly, but that flat six sound, same thing. And once it hits sort of 3,500, 4,000 revs and starts to really sing at the top end of its rev range, there's no sound quite like it. You go to a track day and there's this distinctive sound of Porsches on track, and I absolutely love it. And the GT3 for me is probably one of the best cars you can drive on the circuit, that you can take home at the end of the day and drive and park it in your garage and take it to the shop. The capability of these cars is incredible, but they're also nice and comfy. I think the difference between the GT3 RS and the GT3, in the GT3 you're going to have a bit more of a daily use for the car, whereas the RS is a little bit more track focused, obviously, and you really get a sense of that as you drive it just on a day-to-day basis. It's a little bit more rigid, but you can change that with the button here to sort the suspension out and that softness as well. But they're such an incredible car and one of my absolute favorites. Moving on now to our SUV section, and something a little bit different to what we used to. Obviously, my background being racing is usually supercars, sports cars, and that sort of thing. But this is the first, I've seen some of these on the road. This is the first time I've got up close and personal, and I drove it up here, but I've not really spent any time with it. So I kind of want to explore the car a little bit with you at this point, because it's a brand new car, top of the range, V8 engine, supercharged. I'm going to show you that in a minute as well. But the brand new Defender, they're a massive upgrade on the old ones. The originals were super cool, and there was a period of time where they just had a few things missing, whereas this, I think, is going to take everyone by storm, and I'm already really impressed with them. As we have a walk around, you've got the blacked out pack as well, which I think is super cool. We've got this sort of like metallic feel on the top here, which I really like, and the special edition wheels as well, which I think are super cool. And obviously you can just tinker with that. You can put, if you're going to do some off-roading, put some off-road tires on it, off-road rims on it, and to and fro between it. And these cars are so capable, and we never really see them other than in promo videos, whether they're being taken around the streets or being used as off-road cars. But as much as we don't see them every day doing those things, they are super capable. I mean, the amount of space you have in the car is so impressive. And as we have a little look around the interior in a moment, you can start to get a real feel for that. And even at the back, I mean, the amount of space you've got there as a family car, something you're going to go take away for the weekend, go do a bit of driving in, it's fantastic. And with that supercharged V8 engine, you have an immense amount of power as well. I'm going to bring you around to the back of the car here. Obviously got that sort of real classic Defender wheel that sits in there, and there is a wheel in there as well, which I think is quite cool. And then I'm going to open up the back here. This is all really tactile, and really it's made to be used. It's made to be, you don't feel bad about using. You know, sometimes you see really nice SUVs and they're almost too plush. They're too premium, whereas this, it's premium, but it's ready to be used, it's ready to be worn. There's a few other little details even on the back here. I think that's a really nice touch. It could be easy to get this damaged if it was carpeted, but the back of that's going to be really important as well. I really am a fan. Something I noticed at the back here, we do have that rear tow package as well. So you're going to be towing a caravan, you're going to be towing a boat, you're going to be towing all sorts of stuff. That's going to be really important. And then I absolutely love the two exhausts on each side. It's something little that you don't typically notice on SUV of this nature, but I just think it was a really nice touch, and a couple of extra little holders here, which I think is really useful too. I wanted to have a look at the engine bay now. You can see that supercharged V8 engine, and something I was quite surprised with when I first opened this up was actually how compact it is in this area. Typically, big V8 engine supercharged is typically going to take up a fair bit of space. It's natural. You think about the V8 engine that was in the Mercedes-AMG GTR, big long front end, whereas this, they've managed to compact it really nicely so that as you're driving, the front end isn't too long. And I think that's really important in a big car like this, to make sure that that is something really well thought out, and I think it's been done really well. So as I'm sat in the interior, other than driving up here, this is the first time I've really been able to take everything in a dealership. We've got a few moving parts around the place, so I was more focused on getting up here and making sure we're parked up nicely. But now that I'm sat in here, I'm starting to feel everything. This Alcantara steering wheel is really nice, I have to say, like the positioning of it, but also I feel really high up, but I don't feel like I'm bearing over, and I've got an immense amount of space above me. We've got the long panoramic sunroof, which I'm a huge fan of. I think a pano roof really changes the profile and that interior feel of the car as well. It's a pretty dull day, and you know, we've been still letting in a nice amount of light. We've got great storage compartments here. This feels like a cool box by the sounds of it. Yeah, cool box here, I've just noticed that. Charger phone, a couple of cables as well, and just the touch and feel of it is so premium. The leather's used, the steering wheel. I'm gonna start the car up as well. We can hear that. You can hear that engine now, and I'll just, you can hear the crackle of the engine. I love that. As we're sat here, something that Range Rover typically in the past haven't been as the best at is the infotainment system, but you can see here they've really updated this, and any of the new Range Rover products you can see that change. And I think the usability of it, so obviously we can, as I'm going through here, we're looking at different stuff. You've got wheel information, you can obviously lock the rear diff, lock the front diff, you can go two-wheel, rear wheel, all-wheel drive, slope assist as well, which is really important, particularly if you are going to do some off-road driving. The wade sensing as well, so you're going through a bit of a water creek, that's going to be really important too, and you can see where it sits with that max level on there as well. I'm just enjoying having a little play around with this, to be honest with you. I'm gonna go back to the home, hopefully. You can see all the different points here, and then we go to the seats as well. Climate seats, front and rear. The heated seats is really nice too. I think that's such a nice little thing. And then the vehicle dimensions as well, just in case we have to, you know, in a big car, we're going through some tracks, that's going to be really important. Low traction launch, that's cool. I've never even seen that. Start low, I'm not going to start that because we're going to get in trouble otherwise. But even little things like you've got your 4x4 system. Now this is the page that I would probably have up. This is going to give me all the information. I'm going off-roading. I'm going to start using this car for what it's needed for. It's going to have a slope assist, so it's going to hold you from going down too much. But then driving around on a daily basis, this thing is super cool. That V8 engine, the supercharged nature of it, the power, but also how capable these things are and rugged they are, whilst being super, super high quality and premium at the same time. To finish off today's video, we're gonna finish with this F-Pace SVR. Now, when I came in, it wasn't gonna be my first pick, I'll be honest, but at just over $100,000, this thing is incredible. V8 engine, very, very highly spec'd, and about 405 kilowatts. It's one of the faster SUVs you can get for your money, and it's something that I felt was super impressive, that sort of bang for your buck style feel, but for so much premium quality. They look great. I think Jaguars sometimes haven't been the most desirable product in my opinion, but I think this looks awesome. There's a couple of really fine details that I absolutely love. You've got the vents at the top here, the front grille looks mean, with the black exterior pack as well, these black rims with the red calipers, they look fantastic. The black wing mirrors, that panoramic roof. This thing, I think, is the pick of my day, to be honest with you, and I can't wait to show you around it a little bit more. I wanted to bring you to the rear of the car first. Obviously, we've got the black badges. That black pack, I think, is really nice. The blacked out badges here, that SVR signification, but also these blackened out rear exhaust tips as well, 2 on each side. The noise that this thing makes is awesome. I can't wait to start it up for you in a minute. And I was just thinking as I was sort of walking around here, that level of power and delivery of power in a car like this, and most people wouldn't associate Jaguar with that type of feel. You know, you've got the F-Type, of course, sports car, fun, light, nimble, quick car, V6 and a V8 version, but this thing is unbelievable, and I'm super, super impressed with it. I'm going to show you around to the interior now, and we'll come and have a little look. A couple of things I've noticed already. The cream with the sort of, it's not quite, it's like a black with the honeycomb type feel. I'm a huge fan of it. I mean, sometimes cream interiors can be a little bit overbearing, but I have to say the contrast between the two is really nice. They feel like a bit of a sports seat at the back, but at the bottom they feel super comfortable, which I'm a big fan of. I feel like sometimes you can get the best of both worlds rather than one or the other, and that's what I'm feeling here. Big panoramic sunroof again, we spoke about that in the Defender, something really, really important. It's obviously owned by the same company, but you can start to see the differences as well. A little bit more tactile feel here, in my opinion. Very similar brake lever, but that's very common as well, and not as updated system, but still very usable. A car that's not necessarily just used for that off-road feel. You know, I felt like the Defender was really geared up for the off-road style of driving, whereas this a little bit different in its nature. It's more of a performance SUV than a car that's going to be utilized off-road as much. Start the car up and you can hear the noise, that crackle and pop. It just sounds so, so good. I'm a huge fan, and we actually have an exhaust button here as well. I mean, that is, I mean, for an SUV, that sounds unbelievable. And you can tell the exhaust tips make a real big difference for that as well. And a few other little things, like the headlining's all Alcantara. We've got a leather steering wheel, which I'm actually okay with. Not everything has to be Alcantara in these situations, particularly for a car like this. I don't think it's necessary. Got the SVR signification on there. The Meridian sound system is fantastic as well. Great sound system, and a partnership that Jaguar and Land Rover have been sort of developing over a number of years. And I just feel like there's great space in the back, great family car, but then when you want to drive this thing, open it up, and you want to hear that noise, it's going to be amazing. And I can only imagine as you downshift heading towards a set of lights or something, you'd really feel that kickback of the gear popping into the engine, and that sound, that crisp crackle and pop from the exhaust tips there as well. I think would be really, really fun. And you know, heads up display as well. I've just noticed, like, for $100,000, just over, there is so much in this car. I might have to have a chat with Shreko about it personally. That's going to be it for this week's Friday Drive. We've highlighted a few really cool cars, some that have incredible performance, incredible luxury, a bit of both, but it's been really fun to sort of see the differences between some of the cars that we have here at Lorbeck, but also something like this that maybe people don't think about all that much as something that they'd really be looking at with the amount of performance it has, or the AMG GTR. I know it's sold, but they have plenty coming in all the time and some still in stock. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. Seriously, man, like, no, I'm joking. I'd finished what I was saying anyway, don't worry about it. We should do it all together.
We're going to start photobombing flight.
Yeah. So here's our sales team. Tell us about the car, guys.